I want to focus on a very important topic, and a topic that's near and dear to my heart, not just as the Managing Director of Optus, but also, as Erna said, as the Deputy Chair of the Australian Information Industry Association, which is the peak IT body, association body in the country. So in my role, we've got a pretty significant organisation. We're about, it's a rule of tens. We're at 10 billion in turnover as a company. We have 10,000 people and we serve 10 million customers. So 1 in 3 Australians will touch our service or come in contact with Optus on a regular basis, daily basis. As part of the Singtel group, we have more than 600 million mobile customers across the region. And in my day-to-day activity and week-to-week activity, I would be touching enterprises, corporates, small business, government agencies, federal, state and local on a daily basis. And it's those perspectives that we want to bring to the table here, and some specific research that we have commissioned and the findings of which I want to share with you today. And one of the key challenges, opportunities for us all in the Australian market is just the rapid adoption of technology. 31 million connected mobile devices, and we're 24 million population. We're social media obsessed, 15 million on Facebook, 4 or 5 million on Twitter. We've got 7 million on LinkedIn. We spend an enormous amount on retail online spending, 17 billion. That's 3 or 4 times the combined turnover of David Jones and Myer. 5 hours online a day. 5 hours online a day in some way, shape or form, and 1.5 hours or thereabouts on social media. The way that we engage with customers as enterprise organisations, or the way that we engage with citizens in a government context, has changed forever. And some of the stats here in terms of the government's explosive use now of online and increasing use of social media as well. And if we think about what are the current waves of disruption or the current waves that we are now connecting with organisations, people and citizens, mobile, social, cloud, web content, internet sites, etc., consider what's coming down the line in terms of what we call this future wave of digital disruption and engagement. What we're seeing with the connected home, what many of us are now seeing with electric cars or autonomous vehicles, with drones, which Australia Post is already starting to trial many services out in regional and remote Australia, with wearables now, Fitbits, Apple Watches, Samsung Watches, etc., with virtual reality. These are rapidly emerging as now contact points with customers, contact points with citizens, and they're creating challenges, but they're also creating opportunities for the organisations that are able to truly understand that. So when you think about disruption, really the best response to all this happening around us is innovation. And we're fascinated about this topic, and so fascinated that we decided to for the 5th year in a row, perform some research and a study to understand how are various organisations across both the public sector and the private sector using innovation to deal with disruption. And from our perspective, we interviewed 2 cohorts. 5 years we've been on this journey, speaking to government and also to the enterprise and private sector. And we've recognised now in this world of disruption and innovation, there are kind of 2 major cohorts of organisations. There are the established organisations, big organisations that have got established processes, big customer bases, a lot of legacy environments, a lot of processes and maturity. And of course, you've got what we can call or do know as the digital natives, these startup organisations that are born in the cloud, born in mobile, born digital, where they're agile, they're fast, they're innovative. However, they lack some of the systems, they lack the scale, they don't have necessarily the customer bases. And both of these organisations exist, sets of organisations exist in this country. Now, I don't want to be presumptuous here at the IPAA event, but where would you think government would be across these two cohorts? We would say possibly in the established organisation category. So sharing some of those attributes. Bigger organisations, however established, have lots of strength and maturity, etc., but lack potentially some of that agility and that entrepreneurism, some of that digital set of capabilities. What we found through the research, and we interviewed, by the way, some of the largest organisations in this country, 3 of the 4 major banks, the 2 insurers, retailers, etc. And we also interviewed some of the most exciting startups here in Australia, including The Iconic, which is a fashion online retailer. We interviewed realestate.com, carsales.com, some of our scale-up organisations, Nuix, exciting cybersecurity startup, right across the broad spectrums. And the key takeout for us was that the established organisations and the startup organisations want to and can start to learn from each other, but in many cases they just don't know how. So when we looked at some of these questions that we asked, I wanted to draw out 4 key themes, and we're going to stay on these themes in terms of what some of the challenges are and where the insights are across the enterprise as well as public sector Australia. Citizen-centric approach, or a customer-centred approach, what's happening in innovation and agility, particularly with tech, partnerships and collaboration, where we think we rank and where we actually rank, and a very important area of skills and workforce development. And when we talk about customer centricity, we still as organisations are spending too much time trying to understand how customers are engaging with us versus why customers or why citizens are engaging with us. Lots of organisations collect customer data, customer research, NPS, Net Promoter Score, of course, being highly sort of prevalent across the private sector in particular, also used in public sector. But few organisations, with all the research that they capture, actually know what they're going to do with the research. How do they turn it, those insights, into actions, what we call actionable insights? And the economy is suffering as a result of the fact that we're lacking true innovation and a true customer-centric approach. So the insights of the report, and they're not going to be earth-shattering for you, are to put citizens and customers first in terms of benefits. I'm not sure how many organisations have started to use human-centric design. Maybe a show of hands. Or customer journeys or personas. A few more hands have gone up in terms of just that area. But that's a very rich area at the moment where many customer experience professionals are starting now to lead organisations, again, both public sector and also private sector. How many of you actually trial a service or consumer service that you provide out to a particular citizen group? There's a few hands there. We're seeing too few examples of where you've put yourself in the shoes of your customer and ensure that you experience for yourself what your organisation serves up, whether it's online, whether it's retail, whether it's a branch experience, etc. And what I wanted to do in all these cases, and Optus doesn't have all the answers, is just give you a sense of some of the activities that we're doing, not our products and services, but what we're trying to do in some of these areas to lead the organisation down a path which makes us more customer-centric in this instance. We have now a program where our top 1,000 leaders has to spend now 3 sessions or tranches or periods of time out on the front line with our people, sitting on a customer help desk, sitting in and standing in a retail store, going out and doing a field tech survey. And they've got to come back, they've got to write a report about what they've learned through that experience. There's about that empathy with the way those frontline individuals are trying to do their jobs and all the systems and the processes and sometimes the lack of targeted investment that we have as an organisation where they are inhibitors to delivering outstanding customer experience. looking at some of the systemic issues and trying to address those. And it's a very effective practice, and we'd recommend that to your organisations as well. The next one is innovation and agility. And here are some facts. We think because we subscribe to the latest iPhone that we're an innovative bunch. Facts are that only 16% of Australian businesses or organisations have a high-performance innovation culture. 40% of organisations have no effective innovation culture whatsoever in this country. So we lag the world here. And we often think about innovation as being a department rather than understanding it's a mindset and it's a way of running your organisation. We've also got this incredible fear of failure. You know, we talk a good game. We have a look at the latest in terms of the Harvard Business School case studies, and we talk about fail fast and fail cheap. Everyone's used that language. And then you go back into your organisation and you realise that, you know, there's not a lot of incentive to fail fast and fail cheap. In fact, there's people, quite frankly, worried about what happens if they fail at all. So some of these challenges that we're seeing in organisations. When we look at the research and the Smart Disruption report, here are some of the insights where organisations are now starting to shift their whole innovation mindset and operating rhythm. One of those, again, has to be about ideating and testing concepts and creating a business case sort of environment format where you can do that and encourage that in the organisation. Who uses sort of hackathons or scoring systems here? Few hands, probably not enough. Again, really important as a tool to sort of bring the organisation, force the organisation to start thinking about the way that you innovate and you ideate in your business. And some of the methodologies like Scrum and Agile, I'm not sure whether they are familiar to many of you, all of you. Show of hands. A large portion of the group here. In Optus, again, I just wanted to share some of what we're doing, more as some insight, not that we have all the answers. ThinkSpace is a separate innovation lab that we've set up. We bring our customers through and we sort of co-create business problems with technology solutions. Innovate is our venture capital arm. About 5 years ago, we set up a global venture capital arm. We set up offices in Israel and in Silicon Valley, in Boston at MIT, in China and Singapore, to try and tap into what's happening across the world around payments and cloud and analytics and cybersecurity. Really critical areas in terms of enablement for organisations, but also critical in terms of some of the services that we want to try and provide out to customers. And we also, last year, launched an employee innovation fund. This is a fund where we said anyone across the business, if you come together as a group of people, could be in your normal team cohort group, or it could be just a bunch of bright people from various different functions and groups. We're going to give you $30,000 to come up with a concept, and we do not expect a return. So if the idea doesn't go anywhere, that's okay. Just as an idea in terms of a way that you can just kickstart some of that innovative thinking inside the business. The third one's around partnerships and collaboration. And again, although we have probably some of the best research anywhere in the world, if you look at some of our universities right across the country, including, of course, here in South Australia, we rank last in terms of collaboration between researchers and business and our ability to commercialise some of the great research that we have in this country. And we're not supporting our startup organisations enough here in Australia. Even I look at the Optus example, we need to do more about supporting startups. I was at an event 2 months ago and it was in a cybersecurity context, an area that we're pushing hard into, and we had the 4 CISOs, Chief Security Information Officers of the 4 major banks. And everyone was talking about the way that we're embracing the startup community. We're doing a huge amount, ideating and bringing these startups in there. And there was a pregnant pause and a hand went up in the audience. And it was an individual who identified himself as a local startup in cybersecurity. And he asked the 4 major banks there how many of those were actually working with a local startup in cybersecurity, and there was a silence. So we as big organisation, the banks, the telcos, etc., the retailers are doing quite a bit in startups, not enough with the Australian startup community, and I would say at the government sector and the public sector, not enough through the public sector as well, about bringing some of these organisations in and helping them kickstart your innovation journeys as well. And we know that organisations that prioritise collaboration are the ones that outperform the competitors, the ones that are growing faster. So there must be a willingness to share your skills, your connections and your network. Sometimes in Australia and even in public sector, we kind of hold on to what we have. It's almost, it's my secret, it's my contact, it's my network. We've got to start to be more expansive and think about the power of networking and the power of collaboration. And I mentioned earlier that startups need the support from industry. Not just money, but mentoring, advisory and market access. And there are some great examples, by the way, in public sector. I note here in South Australia, but also in markets like New South Wales and Victoria, where government's starting to open up data sets, transport data sets or other data sets, bus demographics, train demographics and information, and encouraging the startup communities to come and create products and services and feature functionality out of that. From our perspective, embracing the startup community here in Australia is absolutely critical. So we were the first partner of Fishburners, which is the largest co-working space in Sydney. We're about to launch a Fishburners in Queensland now with that organisation. We're the founding partner of Stone and Chalk, which is a fintech hub, also based in Sydney. We can probably, John, do some more here in Adelaide. Let's find out who the innovation network is and the startup networks are here, and try and support South Australia as well, because we're committed to this market. By the way, we run about 800 people here in South Australia, so it's a big part of our overall workforce. If you think about it's almost 10% of our workforce. Okay. And skills and workforce development. And here, whatever statistic you look at, it's a problem. It's a major problem for the Australian economy and for all of us if we believe that the knowledge economy and the service economy is going to be the future of this country. We're ranked 77th there on a global innovation index. PwC, who you were with last night, commissioned a report a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. We were ranked 45th in STEM participation at high schools, and to our concern and shame, we had a situation where we had the lowest participation in final year high school, year 12 high school participation by girls in maths and science in 50 years this year. So it is a real issue, and STEM has to be one of the drivers of our innovation economy. So we must start to get in there and support that. And even the programs and the courses that are being produced by many of the universities now, they're actually not job ready, not in the digital economy, not what organisations are actually needing in either data science, in either cybersecurity, in analytics, in IoT, in machine to machine. They're the roles of the future. We're not even producing the graduates that we need in that context. And we're going to have somewhere in the order of 5 million jobs being displaced as a result of the disruption I mentioned earlier. Social, online, mobile, IoT, autonomous vehicles, wearables, drones. Are we equipped? Do we have the workforce to be able to take on that challenge and drive our knowledge economy? So we need industry, academia and government to come together, to collaborate and build our workforce. We have to make STEM relatable to students. The way you make STEM relatable is you give them career insight. You stay in math, you stay in science through your high school years. You can get a great job in the public sector. You can get a great job in enterprise in one of these great digital online market roles. And the other point that we quite often forget as we focus in on graduates and students is reskilling and upskilling our own workforce. How many bright people do we have in our business that have got some foundation skills that could move into, one of these service-based, knowledge-based, tech-based roles in the business? We think this is a major issue. An example of what we are doing in this space is 2 months ago we announced the largest investment between the private sector and a university in the country around cybersecurity. That's a $10 million co-investment with Macquarie University around building a cyber hub. Short courses, diplomas, degrees and programs to help fuel the hugely underserved and now highly in demand cybersecurity jobs that we need. You know, we would say there's probably 25 to 30,000 now unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs in this country. Across the world, that's almost at 600 million now. So in summary, 4 key insights, and I do want to take some questions if you have them. Customer centricity. Start to use human-centered design. Not about how customers are connecting with you and and citizens are connecting with you, but why they're connecting with you. Are you understanding the journey? And make sure that you consume your own services, what you serve out to your citizen base, your customer base. Innovation and agility, you've got to ideate, you've got to test. You've got to leverage methodologies and tools, as I mentioned earlier. And you also need to start thinking about creating time, creating incentives for your workforce and potentially workspaces where they can come together to innovate and collaborate. And by the way, it's not a massive investment, allocating time, space, resource and/or incentives. Partnerships, collaboration, absolutely critical to everything that we're talking about today. Around learning experiences, and let's support our homegrown startups and bring them into the public sector as well as we're trying to bring them into the private sector. And on the skills and workforce development, you know, it's about all of us coming together to address what is actually a very significant challenge for the Australian economy over the next 10 or 20 years. And think about also retraining and upskilling our people on a journey. So I might take some questions if you have them. I know it's a sort of first session for the day. Hopefully it's one that's warmed you up. Critical to our success is collaboration and innovation. I know it's a central theme for the IPAA conference.
I can kick off with a question if you like.
Go.
Firstly, I want to make a statement. None of those kids were born in the cloud. As a mother, I can tell you that much. So for the mothers in the room in particular. Look, I actually want to start, something I'm really passionate about is youth unemployment, and I guess it's a big issue for us in South Australia. You did say that quite a few graduates aren't sort of job ready. We're not getting the kind of people that we need to do the things that you're talking about. When you look at things like Internet of Things and the young minds, and I guess the sorts of how people have grown up, there is something about their thinking that becomes critical for innovation. So I guess the question I have for you, and I suppose the public service, is what responsibility as really large employers, 104,000 people, what's our responsibility to help these young people, whether while they're at university or not even university? Don't we have some sort of social responsibility to make some way or actually grow them into the individuals that we're looking for?
Yeah, most definitely. My view would be we're not doing enough with the universities and enterprises and industry. So we need to bring those organisations much closer together. We're not driving a more contemporary curriculum that is consistent with the roles that we need. So there's more work for us to do with the universities, but also TAFEs. So it's not just about the unis, but it's TAFEs, and even it's kind of in those secondary years to get these folks job ready. The other thing we're not doing enough of is internships as well. Graduate programs actually have all a bit plateaued out in this country. They're a bit one-dimensional. How many graduates do you take? I take 30, I take 40 a year. It's not cutting through.
No, my suggestion is we need to take thousands.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Get them on.
Your organisation and our organisation. So that's the challenge.
Indeed, and do the internships as well. Bring them on earlier in the process. Now, there's got to be a pro quo. I think that's not going to be at a full whack salary, but get people experience, get them on the tools, get them into industry, and I think you're going to start to see a massive movement, particularly where we have youth unemployment.
Well, exactly. Most important, their well-being and their headspace to feel that they're important. Okay, questions. There must be
We've got some roving mics here.
Optus is on the ground. Come on, can we create a hub here in South Australia? Optus? He's not listening. can we create a hub here in South
Oh,
Australia?
I'm sorry. Was that a question? I thought you were asking for a question.
I'm looking for the questions.
Yeah,
And I thought,
well,
I just thought I'd slip
John,
it
stand
in.
up. Stand up, John. So he's the guy that you want to go and, hassle.
Talk to him.
Go
Okay.
and talk to him. We'll support him. I think from our perspective, we've now got innovation hubs in Sydney through Fishburners, now in Queensland. We've connected with CBRIN, if anyone knows the Canberra Innovation Network, in the capital. So I'm open to an idea. If you guys have got an innovation network, if you've got sort of co-working spaces, startup spaces, and you need some support, I'll say right here, right now, that we're interested.
Did you take note, people? All right, questions. There must be some questions. That was terrific presentation, John. Over here?
Got a roving mic. We've got about 5 minutes here, guys.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
It's okay.
Andrew Duncan from the Institute of Public Administration in Perth, and there are a number of innovation startups over there, so come over and visit sometime.
Yeah, here you go. I keep forgetting it's a national audience, isn't it, too?
Yeah.
We're setting up innovation networks fucking everywhere. Okay.
My question is, Optus is part of Singtel.
Yes.
So what international linkages can you bring to public administration or other innovation in Australia?
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's a great question, actually. We're doing a lot, and actually the Singaporean Prime Minister just visited Australia maybe 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. Very successful visit where we are talking about sort of further trade. Now, first, I mean, I'm Optus and I run the company here. I'm a director of the company, and my primary role in life is to build out the Australian business and the Australian economy. But there's a great deal we can learn from our regional neighbours, and particularly the strong linkages we have as a Singtel organisation through IoT, machine to machine. I mean, they are modelling. Singapore is modelling and probably leading the world now from not just a smart city but a smart nation type approach. You've got to see what's happening in the health sector over in Singapore, what's happening at the moment with roads and transport. The use of sensors, beacons, analytics is quite extraordinary. So we need to model more of that. Now they can do that. It's sort of a single level of government, pretty directive. So quite different landscape to what we have here in Australia. But from an innovation perspective and sort of moving to sort of smart nation type and ambition and execution, they're years ahead. So there's an example I think that we can bring to Australian government or state governments, public sector.
Okay, one more question.
Yep.
Yeah. Helen.
Yeah, no, wait for the mic. Yeah,
I know,
great.
Helen.
2.5 minutes. Yeah.
I'm going to bring you back to, I run a palliative care service in southern Adelaide. We know the challenges for palliative care are that we've got an ageing population, we've got incredible pressure on our services, and we need to do things in a different way. And I'm wondering how we could have partnership and collaboration in redesigning services to an ever-increasing web-savvy dying population who want to be living while they're going through that process.
Yeah.
So I'm really talking about applying it into a population in southern Adelaide that we can actually leverage through partnership and actually make our service much more responsive and available.
Okay. We have to work in that space, specifically in that space. We might connect during the break, but I think it's a huge opportunity for us. And whether we're talking about palliative care sort of at home or in facilities, there is an opportunity for us, particularly in the facilities, to and I'm going to talk a little bit of tech, sort of private LTE, which is private networks, Wi-Fi enabled, application enabled type assistance facilities, and contribution as well from industry. So we've got some ideas there. We may be able to connect during the break. Yeah,
Thank
or
you.
with John again. Yeah.
That's it. I think we've come to the end. Please join me in thanking John. I found it very, very inspiring.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John.
Enjoy.